The risk is off the table, but the upside is still like unlimited. So I'm able to get in at this really unique time in alloy where I'm able to get the cream of the crop territories in my territory, San Diego. But for me, there's not a heck of a lot of risk. It's like I see the risk of like alloy going out of business is like a 0% chance, similar to Bitcoin going to zero. That chance is off the table now.
Jake Rosenthal, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, Rick? How you doing, man?
I am doing well. How is it in sunny San Diego today?
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. I think we were chatting earlier. We had some June gloom, which fortunately I was away on my honeymoon for a couple of weeks, so missed it. It's probably the most adversity that San Diego has to deal with. So as an East Coaster, I've dealt with some much worse weather conditions, but now we're past that. We're into July, and it's just like 73 to 75 every day, all day, and it's freaking money, man. I love it.
Yeah, everyone else in the country right now is like, now I know why everybody wants to live there. Hey, tell us, I feel like we talked a little bit before. I felt a little creepy because I was following you for your honeymoon. But first of all, congratulations on the marriage, which is very recent.
Thank you, sir.
Both you guys look amazing. Look like a great time and beautiful bride, which we would expect from a guy of your quality. Tell us about your honeymoon, because this is one of the areas that is on my bucket list. So where did you guys go and how was it?
So we went to Japan, Tokyo, Kyoto, and we did a day trip to Osaka, and it was freaking awesome. So Japan is just super clean, modern. They're just like ahead of the US on a lot of like little things, like the toilets there, for instance, are just out of this world. And just a lot of little things like that. The food is incredible. They're super respectful to everyone, and especially Americans. Such amazing history. The shrines. We went to this really cool bamboo forest. Everyone's super healthy there. You don't see any overweight people. And the funny thing is, the few overweight people there are, it's not from eating the Japanese food. It's from America infiltrating Japan with the McDonald's and Wendy's and stuff. It's crazy. So you don't see many overweight people, and it's just a really, really cool, different culture. So if anyone thinking of going to Japan, I highly recommend it.
Well, I'm definitely thinking about it. It's on my bucket list. So I was following along with your trip, and I'm like, definitely envious of you guys. But I'm glad you got to do it, man. What a great honeymoon. It's kind of unique too. Usually the honeymoon, you go to the beach and you hang out or whatever, but to go to Japan and do all those adventures, that's awesome. That says a lot about you guys as a couple too. If you both want to do those things together, I think that's awesome.
Appreciate that, man. We did hit Maui on the way back just to get a little taste of that after 9 days of like nonstop traveling in Japan. We broke up the trip home the halfway point roughly in Maui and got like a week of just chilling, which was really nice as well.
Yeah, well, good for you, man. I'm glad you're back, and we'll get into all things. But look, it's the Alloy podcast, so I probably didn't give you enough heads up. But did you bring me a dad joke?
I did.
What you got?
Very stupid as usual, but it wouldn't be a dad joke without. So I can't believe someone broke into my house and stole all the fruit. I am peachless.
That's so bad. It's awesome.
So bad. But the worse, the better, right? Like the stupider, the better.
100%. That's pretty good. Well, mine will be in keeping with the fruit theme. So, weirdest summer job I ever had was cleaning the monkey cage at a zoo. That shit was bananas. So bad.
That's so bad, man.
Well, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for playing along. You did good. That was so terrible that it was like perfect. So good. I love
the fruit theme. I don't think we even collaborated or we didn't collaborate ahead of time, but somehow there's fruit in both.
Great minds think alike, man. Great dad jokes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, man, I'm stoked to have you on. You're a very interesting guy. I mean, you have lots of diversified investment strategies that I want to ask you about. Obviously, one of those being an Alloy franchisee, which we're honored to have you in the system. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But before that, just tell me a little bit about your background and the other investment vehicles that you're in now. And maybe we can even dig into that a little bit. I find it fascinating. And as you know, you've turned me on to some some more information. I listen to your podcast. It's like, it's really cool. So if you don't mind, just share, like, what have you been up to pre-purchasing an alloy?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a loaded question. I'll try to keep it tight. Grew up in Boston. Went to Northeastern University. They have this awesome co-op program where it's a 5-year university, and you actually work 2 to 3 times full-time job over the course of that 5 years. And for 6 months, you don't take any courses, and you just work. And that was a total game changer. So did 2 co-ops, one in Manhattan, one in Southern California, back in college, both in sales. So jumped into the sales world after that, made some great connections, got a job right out of school, moved to Southern California, to Orange County right out of college, did tech sales, and that was a great ride. Worked my way up in that first company called Alteryx. Just by pure luck, the company happened to IPO and had some stock options. So did really well on that, in addition to doing really well in the sales role. Then moved back to Philly, caught the real estate bug at the time, and started kind of buying rental properties with my sales commissions.
What time frame were you doing the real estate?
So I was probably about 25. So I'm 31. So 6 years ago, call it 2018. I bought my first property, maybe.
Yep.
Somewhere around there, cool. 2017, 2018. And started I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which totally just changed the game for me. Like I read a lot of books, but I typically read a chapter or two, put it down and jump around. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I flew through that thing in like a day. And I was like, holy shit, I've been doing it all wrong. I'm not saving my money. I'm just living like a 24-year-old kid at the time, whatever it is, spending my money, not saving any money. Like I have this Jeep and I have all these liabilities. I need to totally get rid of these liabilities and start investing. So I started living way below my means. I got a promotion at the time to Philly. To move back to Philly. It was a big promotion in my sales job, and it was the same time I caught the real estate bug. So as you can imagine, real estate's a heck of a lot cheaper in Philadelphia than it is in Southern California. So I was able to start house hacking. And so what that means is you buy like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you live in one unit and you rent out the others. And if you do it right, you can live essentially rent free. And that's what I did. So I just kept grinding at my job. I was getting paid more after the promotion. I was living rent free and I was just stacking my chips. And soon enough, I was able to buy that second rental property and third rental property. So within like a year and a half period after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was living rent free and had like 3 rental properties and still had the sales job. So that kind of kicked things off. And then had some good fortune after that as well. Moved to another company called Snowflake, another tech company. Ended up being one of the biggest tech IPOs in history, and had a lot of stock options there. So cashed some more chips off the table, continued working that job, stacking my chips, buying more real estate. And that was kind of how the journey launched.
Where are you now with real estate?
So I own a number of short-term rentals. I still have one long-term rental in Philadelphia, but I've did some 1031 exchanges and pushed some additional chips in. And now I own a portfolio of short-term rentals in St. Augustine, Florida. Luxury short-term rentals are all like 4+ bedroom houses, pool houses right by the beach. And then one in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And just got that portfolio of short-term rentals that are doing really well.
Awesome. Any syndicates or multifamily housing, anything like that?
So a lot of guys in my network do multifamily or in the multifamily game. It's something I explored a little bit. I don't personally invest in syndications myself, just because I am still in the building phase of like really wanting to keep my money active and maximize my returns. Right. I personally feel like syndications are really good once you've kind of built that nest egg. You don't want to be involved in the real estate at all, but you just want to collect the returns. And I'm just not at that point yet. I'd rather keep my money active. I did jump into exploring before deciding to land on Alloy, I was exploring the hotel acquisition game, and spent a few months kind of in that field. But after kind of taking a step back and thinking, hey, what do I really want to do? What am I passionate about? It was clear as fitness and running a business, hence how I landed on Alloy. And then I'm a huge Bitcoin guy. So as soon as I kind of like really, really started to understand Bitcoin, I was like, all right, here's how it's going to go. I want to buy a cash flowing business that I'm passionate about, stack as much fiat money as possible, and then push it into Bitcoin to continue acquiring as much Bitcoin as fast as possible. And that's my new mental model. And it's the only thing I'm focused on.
I love it. You're probably the most bullish person that I've met personally on Bitcoin. So I know this is something you're passionate about. We could probably spend an hour talking just about it, but just if you can at the highest level,
yep.
What is it that's so compelling for you about Bitcoin, and why are you so bullish on it?
Yeah, sure. So at a really high level, the government is printing more money every year. So I believe it was during the pandemic, they printed 40% of the entire money supply ever in the United States. We're going into an additional $1 trillion of debt every, I forget the exact stat, but it's very fast. And it's a runaway train at this point. So the government's debasing the currency. There's an infinite number of US dollars that can be printed. So a really good way to think about it is there's 21 million Bitcoin ever. And there's an infinite amount of dollars. So an equation is infinity divided by 21 million. And there's nothing anyone can do to ever make more Bitcoin. It's the first and only asset of its kind where that holds true. So it's the only finite resource in the world that nobody in the world can make more of it. The president could step in and say, I want more Bitcoin. There's nothing they could do about it. They couldn't shut down the network. It's totally distributed. You can make more real estate. You can mine more gold. You can print more money. Can't make more Bitcoin. And now a lot of the risk has been taken off the table. We're seeing huge financial institutions like BlackRock, like Fidelity, and a lot of these huge retirement funds start to pour money into Bitcoin through the Bitcoin ETF, which is the first publicly available way for your average person to buy Bitcoin without having to go on an exchange and all these things. The floodgates have really started to open. And we're also seeing game theory start to play out. So regardless of your political views, you see folks like Donald Trump and RFK come out and say, hey, I endorse Bitcoin. And there's actually rumors floating around that Trump at the Bitcoin conference in a few days is going to actually announce Bitcoin as a reserve currency in the US, which would be tremendously bullish. So you're starting to see game theory play out. Like all these politicians talk about Bitcoin, whether Trump believes it or not, or is just using it as a political tool to win votes, who knows? But it's game theory either way, right? Like this is now becoming a political issue. So for me, at a really high level, it's the risk is now off the table. The floodgates are open. Bitcoin is here to stay, and we're just in the early innings of what I believe is going to be, a multi-million, then multi-billion, and it's in my opinion, in my lifetime, we're going to see multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin. Like one Bitcoin, people are going to listen to this and be like, you are crazy. But I truly believe that we're going to see one Bitcoin being worth $1 billion, multi-billion dollars in my lifetime.
Crazy. Yeah, man. I love it. Well, this is, we had a longer conversation at dinner when you were out here for Discovery Day. And I left that conversation feeling much different about Bitcoin than I did going into it. So let's just say for the average layman out there who you're speaking about it now and they're like, what is it? How's it worth that? Like, who determines the worth? Is it just the next buyer? Like, how does this work? Where would you recommend they go to learn more about Bitcoin? Obviously, your podcast is one place, but is there any other place you'd recommend for them to go to start to learn?
So the Bitcoin magazine, if they just, I forget the exact website name, but something to the effect of Bitcoin magazine, is a really good resource. Bitcoin magazine, tons of good articles and resources. There's also a couple good podcasts out there. One of them's What Bitcoin Did. That's a phenomenal podcast. And then there's the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. So that's the founder of Bitcoin. He's synonymous, so no one knows who he is, but someone took his, or a group of people who are early adopters of Bitcoin took his pseudonymous name and created this resource bank of educational materials and a website and a foundation around it. So that's another good one as well.
Yeah, love it. So obviously real estate, Bitcoin, private business. You mentioned earlier looking at buying a private business. And when you came to Discovery Day, we talked about this. You're like, listen, the last few years I've been kicking tires, looking at buying existing businesses just because private business, again, it's cash flow, right? Which is good for anyone. Why Alloy, I guess, would be a great question. Like there's a million ways to make money. You're a smart guy. You're already exercising several of them. Why did you choose Alloy?
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a loaded question. So for listeners, I didn't tell him I was going to be asking this. I just want to hear it. And I would love it to be off the cuff because I consider you a super dynamic guy. Again, smart guy. You can make money in a million different ways. So yeah, why Alloy?
So to be totally candid, Rick, if you asked me a year ago, franchise, I'd be like, heck no, I'm going to go buy a business. I don't want to go into the franchise model. And after discovering Alloy, that perspective totally changed. So first of all, when I was looking at businesses before, I was looking at, your service-based businesses, roofing companies, HVAC, all the service-based businesses that you hear about in the business acquisition world that are super appealing to a lot of folks right now. And I was thinking, man, if I go buy like an HVAC company, even if I hit it big, find the perfect company, and I'm making a couple $1,000,000 a year, after that wears off, am I going to be really happy, owning an HVAC company? Like, yeah, let's go fix some more air conditioners tomorrow. Heck no, I wouldn't. So I was like, what am I really passionate about? I love health. I love fitness. I always have. Like, it's for both myself, and I feel like it's something to be truly fulfilled. I feel like you got to be helping other people as well, right? And I felt like that was the perfect thing for me. So fortunately, I'm part of this group called Go Abundance, which you're familiar with. And a group of guys within Go Abundance had purchased Alloys. So chatted with them, kind of started exploring it more. And what I really liked was you guys, the model was proven. You guys have been around for, a number of years in some way, shape, or form. I think you guys launched in some fashion in like 99 or something crazy. And then it's evolved into a bunch of different forms, but you guys started the franchising model in like 2019. You had some hiccups during COVID, and you're still at like 65 locations up and running and over 300 sold. So you guys are moving at a clip, and the risk, similar to Bitcoin actually, for me, is like both Bitcoin and Alloy are at this point where it's like the risk is off the table, but the upside is still like unlimited. So I'm able to get in at this really unique time in Alloy where I'm able to get the cream of the crop territories in my territory, San Diego. But for me, there's not a heck of a lot of risk. It's like I see the risk of like Alloy going out of business is like a 0% chance, similar to Bitcoin going to zero. That chance is off the table now. But I may be able to get in with a ton of upside. So that was really appealing for me. So it was a number of different reasons. I also just having some guys in my network, candidly, who had done it, who I can bounce ideas off of, was a nice safety net. That was a kind of icing on the cake. It was more so the other reasons I discussed, and for all those reasons, obviously met you, know Rami pretty well, who I know you're pretty tight with. So just good people, good vibes, which is really important to me as well. Like in the leadership team, and just all the stars align. I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, look, you're one of those guys. I think you said I'm going to be fastest to open. And I was like, yeah, a lot of people say that. So we're like, yeah. And then you're so bullish on the whole idea that before we even officially engaged, like sign the franchise agreement and whatnot, you already had LOIs out on proposed real estate, which I thought was really interesting. And it's funny because there's two ways to look at that. It's like, whoa, just follow the process, Jake. But I'm like, no, this is different, right? Like you're doing it in a way that like you already know the profile of the property that we're looking for. And so, yeah, it's always a good indication that someone's really engaged early on, right? So yeah, we're stoked to have you. So let's say we get down the road 5 years, let's say 8 years, because the 10's a way out, right? So 5 years plus down the road, first, where do you see yourself with Alloy? Like, what would be your plan overall? And then maybe just where's Jake elsewhere? Like you kind of mentioned an overreaching philosophy a minute ago, but like, where do you see yourself financially and business wise, maybe even personally 8 years from now, say?
Yeah, I'll answer the first part first and then the second part. But from an Alloy perspective, I definitely want to get to a minimum of 5 locations, hopefully more. And the plan would be more, especially in 8 years. But let's just say super conservatively 5 in 5 years, just because there are, unfortunately, as fast as I want to run, some bottlenecks that you have to deal with permitting and just some red tape with like things out of your control, like finding the right location and whatnot. So let's just say aggressive but conservative at the same time. 5 in 5 years, get a regional VP in place so that I can remove myself from the business a little bit at that point, just from a lifestyle perspective. And that way I can jump in and as much as I want, but I have someone in place. And then, let those run, let those cash flow. Maybe I get to a point where I want to, sell them, maybe not. So just having that optionality. And then from a personal perspective, man, I'd love to just continue aggressively stacking Bitcoin. I think in 5 to 8 years, we're going to be looking at $1 million plus Bitcoin. It should put me in a really good spot to do a lot of different things and have some optionality from a lifestyle perspective. Have some kids at that point. We actually recently froze embryos, so we're
cool.
planning on having our first kid in call it a year, implanting one of those embryos or whatnot. So have a couple kids at that point, and man, I don't know, just live life and live each day on my own terms, and man, all the good stuff.
So you mentioned early on that purpose, right, was one of the reasons, like, why Alloy. It's like, hey, look, I would like to do something that helps people. And I think maybe shame on me, but I've been really surprised that to a person, everyone that shows up for Discovery Day and they answer that question, why Alloy, in the room, everyone is at least a purpose is 100% mentioned as at least one of the reasons why people, would invest in an Alloy. So why is that important to you? It may be a bit of a loaded question. Why is it important to you that the business does good? And I'll back up a minute. You already mentioned something. I tell people this. There's a lot of ways to make money. You can clean gutters. There's a lot of businesses that are, air quotes, boring businesses that still give decent returns. Now, if you can get a decent return and purpose is the tiebreaker, why is that important to you?
The purpose component?
Yeah. Why would that be something that, where does that come from? That sort of need to serve the community. Can you articulate that at all?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I guess when you get to the point where you have some money, it becomes extremely clear that money's great. It makes a lot of things more comfortable, but it's not the end all be all, right? Like that happiness it brings is fleeting. It doesn't bring like a true sense of like fulfillment every day. And you hear people a heck of a lot with literally a million times more money than myself. Billionaires, trillionaires talk about this as well. That it's the purpose is very important. So after experiencing it myself and talking to people a lot richer and smarter than myself, it's very clear that rings true. So just doing some kind of soul searching and thinking about what I really want to do and experiencing it, right? Like just thinking back to the points in my life where I really did feel fulfilled and I felt like I was giving back and helping other people. It's like twofold. First of all, from a selfish perspective, just candidly speaking, it makes me, myself feel better every day. I feel more fulfilled and better. But then also, I do really want to give back to other people and help other people, and like the enjoyment like that they're getting. It's just such a two-way street because I'm making other people happier and healthier and more fulfilled, and then I'm getting that fulfillment and that joy as well. So it's just like there's so many different avenues. Whereas like, yeah, I'm making $10 million a year owning this HVAC company, but I feel empty inside. That will get old real quick. Like within months, I think it would get very old.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I always tell people again at Discovery Day that I want them to be able to experience what I've experienced, which is in all the stages of my business from 22 years old to now, there's not any stage of the business, whether I was working in it or consulting or speaking or, whatever I was doing, that I didn't wake up completely excited every single day. And I don't know that everyone can really say that. Because to your point, the utility of money beyond a certain threshold, yes, money's good. And believe me, when you have some, it beats not having any. That's for sure. So I don't want to be flippant about that. But beyond a certain amount of money, it does nothing to move the needle on your happiness. And then it becomes about purpose, right? To your point. And I think I'm so fortunate to have, for my entire life, been able to wake up in the morning and really enjoy what I do. Like my feet hit the ground and I'm excited, and I'm more excited now than I've ever been, entrepreneurship, fitness, right? One vehicle. It's like, man, it doesn't get much better than that. So I'm glad to hear you say that. And obviously, you and I align on a lot of those thought processes, which is why you're such a great franchise partner. You were unanimous yes from the whole team. It was like, yeah, this guy's awesome, right? Smart guy, understand investing, understand getting return on investment, and then also understanding like, hey, like to your point, beyond a certain threshold, money's not going to make a difference. I need to have a purpose every day. And there's a lot of ways to do that. So yeah, love it, man.
100%. Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's so cool that you found that purpose so early on in life. Because man, if you can do that, you can be light years ahead. Like if you're like, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm passionate about it. And I feel fulfilled by it, and just go all in at an early age and stick with it, man. Like, yeah, I mean, you're a testament with how successful you are at a still relatively young age. But man, you can do some damage if you know early on and stick with it. You'll be successful for sure, especially with the passion behind it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you people are always like, oh, I want to do what you've done. I'm like, well, hopefully I can give you a shortcut, because I don't want you to have to wait 30 some odd years. But I'm not sure that I would change it, because I don't know that you're really ready, and you can appreciate it much more. So much experience, right? I mean, we can speak to the competitive landscape in fitness. I mean, any imaginable question that you would have, we've probably worked on it at some point. And so I love that. I love that perspective, and it makes me feel really good about where we are. And obviously it's a compelling story to folks like you. Well, listen, man, if somebody wants to learn more about you personally, you've got a great podcast. Where would you send them?
Yeah, so 2 places to your point. Check out my podcast, Life on Your Terms with Jake Rosenthal. Find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the big guys. And then check me out on Instagram, jake.r.rosenthal. Post some stuff on there as well.
Awesome. Well, listen, man, we're super stoked to have you in the system. I'm proud of the fact that we have amazing franchise partners, you being one of them. And we'll get you back on once you're up and running. I know you're in the real estate process right now. So once you get that first location over, we'll get you back on, see how your experience has been, and go from there. What do you say?
Yeah, love it, Rick. Love it. Soon enough. I'm, as you know, I'm moving at a clip here. So hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later. And I would love to come back on and talk about all the success.
Yeah, man. I love it. Well, listen, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate your time today. And I'm sure people got a lot out of it. And I would encourage anyone, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, reach out to Jake, consume some of his content, dig in a little bit. It's interesting.
Good stuff, Rick. Love it. Thanks for having me on, man.
All right, brother. See ya.